Ever wondered why we vote for our class presidents? This is because we're exercising a democratic kind of government, also known as democracy, a government by the people in which the voice of the majority is given priority. This has been used all over the world, most notably in countries like the USA and even the Philippines. But how exactly did we get to democracy? Long before, there were once rulers who held unlimited power. This type of government is called absolutism or absolute monarchy. However, because of the endless powers of the ruler, this was bound to be abused and controlled for their own selfish reasons. This pushed the people to come together and fight for their voices to finally be heard. This was one of the earliest forms of activism, a practice in which emphasizes direct action in support or opposition of a controversial issue. This fight for change started in Britain and France. Britain was a constitutional monarchy in the late 1600s. The right to vote or suffrage was limited to men. Still, there were property requirements that made only 5% of the people vote. The Reform Bill and Chartist movements were all attempts and forms of activism to extend suffrage to all of Britain's men. In the end, they got what they wanted. The women couldn't just stand by and watch. In the 1800s, women from the United States and Britain worked to gain their right to vote. Society still refused to hear their voice, which pushed Emmeline Pankhurst to conduct militaristic movements. Even with these, women only gained the right to vote after the World War I. Now let's go to France. After the Franco-Prussian War, France was in a crisis, and they had to literally change governments almost yearly. Finally and eventually, they put up a republican government called the Third Republic. Yes, it lasted for 60 years, but France remained divided. Many monarchs and aristocrats felt threatened by the Republic. Because of this, the Dreyfus Affair, wherein a Jewish officer was framed for selling military secrets to the Germans, served as the battleground for the opposing forces. This was also fueled by the anti-Semitism feelings or prejudice against Jews. The Jews, often subjected to discrimination, worked to establish their homeland, and this movement was called Zionism. Britain and France weren't the only ones who sought control in their government. Let's take a look at British colonies' campaign for self-rule. Australia and New Zealand. Britain began colonizing Australia for the purpose of sending convicted criminals where they would serve their sentences there. This was called a penal colony. Eventually, settlers from England came.
Created using Powtoon.